Hi, and welcome to Close Up with the Hollywood Reporter Drama Actresses. I'm Lacey Rose, and I'd like to welcome Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Rose Byrne, Helena Bonham Carter, Janelle Monáe, Zendaya. Let's get started. We are living through a unique, powerful, charged, and complicated moment in history, both with the pandemic and more recently the social unrest. What have you all learned about yourselves during this time?
A lot. I've learned a lot and I'm continuing to learn. I think being an awake, aware, conscious, empathetic, thoughtful human being, it's pretty exhausting. And it's been a time to really dig deep and examine, what are you doing in your life and what are you doing in your business and in your work, and really look at those things with new eyes.
I think also having the time to be alone and not distracted has been almost divine timing in terms of how everything is unfolded. And that, I think, is kind of a blessing in this COVID pandemic. There wasn't any chance for people to get distract going back to work or going out to dinners or whatever. We were all pulled together. It feels extremely unifying and oddly beautiful, what I've been witnessing. In human beings, it's extraordinary. The resilience, whether it was the pandemic or the social unrest, how everyone pulls together has been stunning to watch.
It's very funny over here. I'm in London and the rest of you are in America. But it's extraordinary that there's one thing that has unified us all. And yet we're all having very different, depending on your privilege, depending on your situation in life and economically and also health. I haven't been directly affected or known anyone who's been directly badly affected by COVID. As Reese and Jennifer have said, it's the luxury of time, which we don't have. But it's kind of fascinating that we have to rely on the whole world stopping for us to stop.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a time for realizing that so much of my life I spend with superfluous things. And then what's been happening in the Black Lives Movement, I feel like because it's happening now, we have now the time to properly consider it and seriously have the time to see what everyone can do about it. People have said, do you think it would have happened if COVID hadn't happened? And I feel, unfortunately, not.
No, I agree
I think
with you.
The tipping point is something to do with the fact that everyone has the time and the space to actually change the society. On a profound level. It's extraordinary living through history. We're very privileged. And I know that this time for me has been utterly precious, and I think I'll come away with things that will profoundly change. For one, also as an actor, it's just such a nice thing because everybody is as unemployed as I am, and I don't have to worry about it.
Do you typically worry about that? Are you looking over your shoulder?
You're always looking over the shoulder, and you always will in this profession. I knew Peggy Asheroft, who was this amazing, and Judi Dench. I mean, every single actor, we're all insecure, and we all never know if we're going to be employed again. And you'll never have that sense of complacency. It's exciting. It's also the flip side is that we have no idea what's going to happen next year. We have no idea what's going to, unless we're in a long, really great movie series. With The Crown, for me, that was a great thing because I knew what I was doing for once, for 2 years.
But that's so true. It's like gratitude and solitude, I was referring to it. And to realize, like you said, there's so much unnecessary stuff. We really need so little. Yeah, just clutter. We've cluttered. I think we've taken such advantage of our planet. Our brains have had too much information. Our children aren't connecting with each other. Everyone's into these phones, and now all of a sudden, everyone just got to stop. Just the planet is so grateful for just letting it breathe.
You guys have these giant platforms. How much obligation do you feel to speak up in this moment? Janelle, what's the sort of weight of that?
Well, I think this is an interesting time and an important time for all of us to check our perspectives and where we're coming from. For me and my people, for the Black community, this is not an exciting time for us. And this isn't a time that we get to really reflect. We're dealing with a lot of trauma. Not only COVID-19, which affects us in a disproportionate amount, if America sneezes, the Black community gets pneumonia. And our healthcare systems haven't worked for us historically, and now we're having to deal with the very color of our skin, making us a target. We lost a lot of lives. We've been losing lives for decades, for centuries. And I think for me, I am trying to figure out how to channel my anger. Being angry, to say the least, is my emotion. Also, when you're thinking about the essential workers, Black women, Black people make up the essential workers who are making sure that we have our packages, our food, making sure that, you know, that we're taken care of, that things are clean. And that is not a time for them to even reflect in the ways that I think we, you know, as artists have that privilege to do. So I think this is a time that I'm checking my privilege, and I'm also mourning with my people. And I'm also, one of the things that I learned about me is that I'm not settling for those who say they are allies. The work that they have to do, I'm not settling for lip service. My love language, and if you want to show me that you are an ally, it's going to have to be rooted in service, acts of service. We have been marching, we have been screaming that Black lives matter. I'm asking of my white friends or those who consider themselves supporters of me and us during this time, I'm asking that you have those conversations around white supremacy. You have conversations around why your ancestors started chattel slavery. You have those questions, those tough conversations of why we're even saying Black Lives Matter as though Black people are objects and not subjects to study into the end of time. Have those conversations around how you dismantle systemic racism. And that's where I am now. I think this is a moment for Black people to stand our ground and ask more of our systems. In Hollywood, ask more, because it can't just be, okay, we're gonna march with you and we're gonna do a hashtag. It has to be rooted in justice as well. Systemic change has to be made. The way that you're hiring folks, who's on your board, like how many Black people do you have there? What kind of films are we greenlighting? What kind of depictions of police are we greenlighting? I'm team defund the police, abolish the police. I realize that. That's very clear for me. And I want to put that money into more our education, into our healthcare systems. I want to redistribute that money and to put it into places that have oppressed us for far too long.
Boom.
Do you guys feel like you'll make different choices at the other side of this, whether it's the stories you choose to tell or the characters you choose to inhabit?
I've made it a point in my music career to make sure that the world knows that we're not monolithic. You know, we can do the math that get men into orbit and into space. We can also be in the ghettos in Moonlight and support the Chirones. You know, it was super important that those were the first roles that I took. Even in music, I've tried my best to walk my truth as a queer Black woman, you know, growing up in America and what that means. Like, I grew up to essential working parents. You know, my mother, her last occupation, she was a janitor. My father is a trashman. So I've seen them wear their uniforms every single day. I've seen how my family has helped build this country and keep our communities clean. I know my ancestors helped build this country, right? And so for me, I feel a deeper responsibility, especially through art, to make sure we are represented. You know, representation is super important. Our voices on screen, our presence on screen, it's all super important. And I think I'm also at a point where I want that freedom. I want the freedom like all of my favorite, you know, actors who get an opportunity to do fantasy, do sci-fi, do drama, do all these things. You know, I want to see more scripts where, you know, you're writing for the human. You're not pushing me to be a stereotype of what you think Blackness is. You know, I want that freedom, and that's what I'm focusing on right now in my career, is how we can put forward more films and television shows that show our range, that show, you know, our brilliance in many areas, and show us as human beings, complete human beings.
You know, examining privilege, as Janelle said, I think I went through a reckoning probably 4 or 5 years ago with the Time's Up movement. realizing that we work and exist inside of systems that are really broken. So trying to get strategic about what my influence or power on my platform can help inform or create change. I think it started with having conversations. Every time I took a job, I would call whoever was the head of the studio and, talk about, what does your board look like? Well, where are your female executives? Where are the people of color? Starting to ask more questions about how does the money flow through companies? What kind of representation at my agency?
Was there fear with those questions? Were you nervous to ask those kinds of questions?
Absolutely, because I'd never questioned anybody before. I'd never spoken up or asked anything before. I just accepted systems. At the time, I think I was 40 years old or 41, and I was like, what am I doing? If I don't use this one walk on earth to create a better reality for the women that are coming after me, what are we doing? And I've been very privileged. I've been the beneficiary of a system that valued people who look like me. I've made a lot of movies, but I want to make things that matter, and I want to work in partnership and real partnership with people who are committed to change within our industry, within the world, within their communities and their families. And I think that means empowering women and getting women paid. That's something I like to talk about a lot. Pay equity. And that means for Black women, Latinx women, LGBTQ women, differently abled women. That's a life commitment, because you can make great shows. We could have made a great show and it said a lot of things about white privilege and class and race and how we treat immigrants in this country. But it was how we made it is really valuable to me. Our writer's room was made up of the most diverse writer's room I've ever seen. And, people with immigrant parents, LGBTQ representation, adopted children, Black women. There was a man in there. There was one man. But after I worked with Ava DuVernay on Wrinkle in Time, it just became a really paramount, important thing in my career to really focus on how things are made in our business. So we're part of those systems, and we can ask a lot of questions, and we should, and we need to. It's okay to make people feel uncomfortable, the people who own these companies, because they make money off of us, and they get the best of us, right?
Zendaya, I want to talk about the choice you made with Euphoria. I've heard you talk about sort of the pressure you felt and the sort of near paralysis you felt about making that next move, after a career, a Disney career for a much younger audience. Can you elaborate on that sort of pressure that you felt and how much of it was internal versus external?
I think like a lot of artists, I think I'm my biggest critic. Some of it was internal. It was not wanting to make a mistake or worried that maybe I didn't have the room to make a mistake and wanting to make the right next move. And I felt like I felt that pressure within myself. But I also, I wanted to prove myself. It was one of those things. It was like, I didn't know what that next thing was going to be, but I know that there was something that I was capable of that I just hadn't had a project, I guess, to pour that into, or that scared me or challenged me in that way. And I think when Euphoria came along, I was just very grateful. The only way to really describe it is like when you know kind of thing, and all those fears just kind of melted away, and I just felt like it was something that I had to be a part of and that I had to do, and I felt very connected to Rue. She's a human, and she has flaws, and she has beautiful characteristics about her, and she's and I care about her so much, as if she were my little sister, as if she were a part of me in some kind of way. And I didn't have those fears while I was doing it. The fear kind of then became just like, push yourself, can you, if you go to work and you're scared, that's a good thing. You should be worried about whether you can do it or not, but I was very grateful to be put in a safe space where I could go there and have those moments and feel safe and feel like I could be open. And again, just like gratitude, I think is for that whole experience, for Rue, for the storytelling. It's just kind of the overwhelming feeling that kind of drowned out the fear.
I just want to say you were brilliant. You were brilliant.
I appreciate that.
I agree.
So much.
I agree.
Yes.
You were amazing.
You had us all on the edge of
and
our
I
seats.
would be scared to
so.
play that character too. That was a hard character to play.
Well, I appreciate it coming
Seriously.
from you, from all of you. That means, the world to me. So thank you very much.
Zendaya, you just said something that I want to sort of touch back on, which is that you didn't feel like you had the same space to mess up. Hoping you can sort of elaborate on that, and what's the burden of that? And how does that impact the decisions that you make or the choices that you make?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it's a constant thing. I think, also being a young Disney actor, that's one level. Being a young Black woman is one level. And then also just being very, very hard on myself is another level. I just want to, make sure I'm always doing the best that I can. And I think sometimes that, it can cause you to be fearful of things. But I will say that there's something that happens when a special character or a special script comes along, for me at least, where everything, the stars just feel like they align. And it feels right. And those fears melt away. They don't come back until it starts airing, which is when I started to get a little scared again when Euphoria started to air. But the motivation is sheerly just to prove to myself, just to work harder on myself and on the craft and become a better. That's the fight now. I'm not trying to prove myself to anyone else, which is a good feeling, and I just want to get better. It's more of an internal thing.
I like that. Helen, I want to talk to you about taking on this role of Prince Margaret. And if I have this right, it wasn't an easy yes for you. You sort of had to be talked into it. What was that about? And how did you ultimately get to yes?
Well, it might not be a relief to Zendaya to know that, 30 years later, you'll still be carrying the onus of having to prove you can do it to yourself. And that doesn't go away. I mean, maybe other people are relieved and they're fancy free and they're like, fuck it, I got it down. And, maybe I shouldn't say fuck it, but you never do the same part. You never know if you can do something. With Margaret, I was very conscious that it was a hit. I was very conscious that Vanessa just won a BAFTA. So at the beginning, it was terrifying. Everyone was terrified on the first 2 weeks. Then you relax. The other thing was I have to see a script. I have to respond to the words. So they were kind of shocked that I wouldn't just take it. Morgan thought I was sort of insulting them, and I wasn't. It wasn't to do with the fact that I didn't believe it wasn't going to be a great script, but I just needed to know whether I could do it. He sent me the last episode, which is a really good Margaret episode. And I knew instantly, yeah, I know how to do this. So as soon as you begin to trust yourself, you think, oh yeah, that is why I took so long. It wasn't a lack of faith in them, it was a lack of faith in myself.
Sure. And once you did, you threw yourself in. Yeah. I mean, I've heard you bought the perfume that she wears. You worked with a movement coach? I do
everything. I stop at nothing and hope that something will stick. I'm a big person on prep. It's just insane how lengths to which I go, and I think it comes from insecurity and anxiety, and also I enjoy that bit. So it's always, for me, the best bit of the job is when I get the job, and then there's that time when there are all these possibilities and opportunities and dreams, really, of I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to look like this, and I paint it, and there's much detail that I can glean. I feel like sometimes I would have liked to have been a detective, because I want to just sift through absolutely a bit of, of every single bit of information that I can get. And then also, if you are playing somebody like Princess Margaret or somebody who's well known, you get to meet all these people and then have these conversations with them. So it was a process that I really loved. But yeah, no, I went to ridiculous lengths. But, I don't know if it pays off, because like Olivia Colman, who plays the Queen, she does nothing. I mean, and she's free to admit it. I mean, she literally learns the lines and turns up and puts on an accent. And it's kind of galling, because, you've spent... It's like somebody who does no work and gets an A+. Yep. She didn't even know when she was born. I said, you do know her birthday at least. She said, what? I mean, honestly, she's like a sort of... She has this genius of just being a medium. But I'm always fascinated, because people don't really talk about it, about how actors prepare. Do you girls, women, humans. What do you guys do?
Yeah, playing Gloria Steinem was a lot of preparation. I felt like that too, Helena. Like I was trying, like a detective, like trying to find stuff and reading everything and footage, and my trailer was covered with pictures of her, and I was immersed and obsessed and dreaming about her. But I don't know either. Like you don't know what's gonna pay off or what isn't. And yeah, I was deeply paranoid. During the shoot, I would always be like calling up Darby Waller, like, am I terrible? What am I doing? Is it bad? Is it too much? Is it too little? Oh God, don't fire me, like that kind of thing. Like just, deeply paranoid, particularly when you're playing someone that everyone already has a projection onto of what
it's
they
recognizable.
are. And, if someone as iconic as Margaret or as Gloria or, that. So it's, I'd never done that before, playing someone that's so well known.
Walk me through the decision not to reach out to this woman whose every move you're studying. At any point in the process, did you want to, even if it was after the fact?
Yes, I mean, of course I do, but I just sort of know that I can't, not.
Why?
So it's a tough show for I think women of that time and of the movement. Phylis Schlafly is an incredibly polarizing character, and it's told through Phyllis's eyes, this story. So I think that would be really incredibly hard if you were Gloria or Brenda Fagan-Fastow or whomever to try to revisit that time from that perspective. I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know, I don't want to speak for them, but as an artist, the project as a whole was just so incredible to be a part of. The tapestry of all of these women, learning about the legacy of someone like Shirley Chisholm and Bella Abzug, and there would be no Time's Up without these women. There would be no Me Too without these women. They really did have such a, and it's, I thought I knew about second wave feminism. I was like, yeah, I can't. And then I quickly realized, I don't know anything. It's sort of a largely forgotten part of history, a lot of it, the Women's Conference in Houston, and they had so much influence in government at that point, and it's not sort of reached that level of influence, I don't think, since then. It's a great project too, because it really reverse engineers historically where we are, why we are where we are today, and the divisiveness of politics and the cult of sort of the right-wing personality and alternative facts and so on and so forth. So I quickly realized that too whilst we were doing it.
It's relevant in all the ways you wish it wasn't relevant. I think that's what you're seeing with a lot of these projects. With Morning Show, Jen, Reese, the show sort of delves into the gray areas of the Me Too movement and that experience. You guys were both these very hands-on executive producers. What kinds of conversations did you have about sort of exploring the complexity of the various emotions and the responses to sexual misconduct?
Mainly for each of us was just to go into the heart of it and to really just pull every curtain on how dark and messy and unforgiving the world was and is, and have each and every character just have all of these wonderful different dimensions. And Carrie Aaron she's brilliant. She's also psychic. I don't know how she seems to have written our fires. I mean, I don't even know how she kind of tapped into what she tapped into. And to also say all of the things that are said behind closed doors that no one has the guts to say out loud. And that's what was so refreshing about it. And talk about it, characters to build and create and just feel like you're just dumping, manhole covers off your back in terms of, what you get to release. And I mean, it was extraordinary for me. And then I had Reese as a partner, which was also having, having the grade A student next to you all the time.
I don't know, babe. I mean, your prep and everything. She came in just like ready with that journalist voice, and I was like, where did you get that journalist voice? She's like, I've been preparing it for 8 weeks. But
it was so much fun.
It was really fun.
Jewelry and the clothes and the tailored this, and it was just fun. You just kind of get lost.
Reese, what were the parts of the conversation that weren't sort of being had out in the open that you wanted to have in the show itself?
I mean, when we talk about systems, it shows you from the top down to the very bottom exactly how people are treated and who is listened to and who is believed and who is not, and who is important in an organization and who's not. And media is its own mixed bag, I think it's a bizarre world we live in that we don't even know where to get the truth anymore. right? And then Twitter's going a million miles an hour with all kind of false sources and information. And it was really interesting to dig into that journalistic integrity piece too. Where is the moral integrity in that business? That was kind of an interesting question to dig into.
Janelle, I want to turn to you. Your role in Homecoming was written without an ethnicity attached, and you've said, and I'm quoting you here, "I love the fact that I am Black and that I get to bring that to the table." I'm hoping you can expand on that idea and how your own identity helped shape the character.
Yeah, this was the first script where it didn't specify urban or Black. And I obviously am very proud of who I am and where I come from. I will say, in addition to that, I felt free in that role. And what I loved about this character is that Jackie is such a chameleon. She wakes up in the middle of this boat with no memory. She doesn't know who she is, what happened to her, and so you go on this journey of self-discovery. She's trying to uncover her identity. I have fun doing a lot of backstory for her and researching. I got an opportunity to rewatch some of my favorite films like Memento, where that deals with memory loss. I did the Jason Bourne identity films. I also watched this film with Nicole Kidman, Before I Go to Sleep, where she wakes up and doesn't know, who she is, and her husband has to put these Post-it notes to remind her. I studied a lot of short-term, long-term memory loss and amnesia. I didn't want to play her one note. I didn't want to play her disoriented the entire time. Wakes up, doesn't know, oh my God. It was like, no, how can I really deal with the frustration of one not even being able to remember? And people are asking her, what happened? How frustrated, would we be if we could not remember? Also, she couldn't trust everybody because she doesn't know who did it to her. So there's like a certain level of guard that she puts up, and this shield and this armor, but she has to get the answers, right? I personally would not have made the choices that Jackie made, but that was what was intriguing. You learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about the why people do the things that they're doing. And in creating her backstory, I had to create that world that would make this person want to do that. Was she told that she wasn't good enough and she was obsessed with winning? Was that the thing?
Sure.
And when you're thinking about, living in a patriarchal society, right? This character who is, in a relationship with another woman, we both have to come home and deal with a system that was not built for us. It didn't have us in mind. We're fighting against it every day, right? It was great, though, being able to mastermind with another woman on screen to take down the patriarchy, to buck that system, and to be in those positions of power. But then it's like, how much are we willing to risk to gain power? What does that actually feel like when you use the same logic as those men to get to where you are? Mm-hmm. And I found myself asking myself those philosophical questions like, am I becoming the enemy? Is my character becoming, or should I, even in my real life, ever use that playbook? It's old. So I'm even more for burning down the whole system, burn it down, build it. It wasn't meant for us. It wasn't meant with us in mind.
No, I think that's powerful. Helena, you recently said, and I'm going to quote you here, you're always at the mercy of what others see you as or don't see you as, and you have to fight for what you really want. What's that look like in your career, and what was worth really fighting for?
Put it this way, you are at the mercy of, because we can't give ourselves jobs unless we're, dynamic like Reese and people unless you produce the things and have the energy and, actually do it. And I often think I'm going to do it, and then I just lose momentum. To get a job, you always are at the mercy of somebody else thinking whether you're appropriate.
How did the industry see you?
Well, I was completely, way back 100 years ago when I started in the profession, I was very much an ingenue, and I appeared in a lot of costume dramas. So that was my typecasting. I remember I came to LA, this was in my early 20s, and I just felt such a freak because I knew I didn't have the legs to survive in LA, and then the parts that were available for women then were just so bad. And the only dimension was about your body. That was how it was, And it was always like you were the girlfriend or it was an appendage to the main, you know, it was always a supporting part, but it was very little dimension, and the only thing that defined you was kind of what you looked like. And I was very small, and I'm still small. I haven't grown, and my legs weren't particularly thin, and I just thought, Jesus, and I was so apologetic of myself that I didn't look like, you know, what I thought I was meant to look like. So I think when Tim, who I ended up having 2 children with, he phoned me up and wanted me to be a chimpanzee, I thought, thank Christ, somebody is casting me for not what my envelope is. Talk about freedom. That was a sort of like, I felt like liberated. So even though the script was terrible, I thought, I've got to play a chimpanzee in a Tim Burton film, because it's not, I'm getting out of my skin, which is all I want to do. And it's all I've ever wanted to do. And I'm sure is that I want to get rid of myself. I want to crawl out of this envelope and be somebody else. And I always think I'm doing it, and then I watch 5 minutes and then I give up quickly because I realize, damn, I'm still me. My impulse to act is to escape myself, and then also escape my own perception of myself. So I think very early on, when I could, I started just doing everything that was different. Not for the sake of being different, but I always knew that I was at heart a character actor. I didn't want to be the lead. I was in a room with a view when I was an embryo, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
So good.
But I was learning on the job.
Amazing.
But I was just fun. Everybody else had the funny lines. It was like, this was so boring. And, you know, I spent my 20s being bored and being ashamed of what I looked like. I had no idea that, you know, 30 years later I'd be like, why don't I have plump skin? You know, I spent my whole youth denigrating myself, having no idea that in fact that was something that that's what it, you know, that was probably me and a lot of other women, frankly. And now it's like, it doesn't matter that much. I mean, the relief of getting older, people don't, you know, it's been said before, but it's you get off your own back.
It's so true. Youth is wasted on the young.
Has anyone else in this group struggled at any point with wanting to be seen in ways that the industry perhaps didn't want to see them? And yeah, Jen, so what do you do?
Yeah, you just exhaust yourself. I mean, I could not get Rachel Green off of my back for the life of me. I could not escape. Just Rachel from Friends, and it'd be like, and it's on all the time, and you're just like, stop playing this fucking show. And also, getting older, there is such a freedom in the work because you just stop giving a crap after a certain amount of time. I guess it was The Good Girl that was the first time I got to just sort of really shed whatever this little like Rachel character was, to be able to disappear into someone who was walking in those shoes was such a relief to me. And I just remember the panic that set over me thinking, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know, maybe they're all right. Maybe everybody else is seeing something I'm not seeing, which is you are only that girl in the New York apartment with the purple walls, you know? And so I was almost doing it for myself to just see if I could do something other than that. And it was terrifying because you're doing it in front of, you know, the world, and it's very vulnerable. And then something happens where you just get to, especially with Alex Levy, I get to play a woman that she's way smarter than I am, and it's so fun to play someone who's so smart. You know, in that way. And anyway, I completely just fought with myself and who I was in this industry for forever, because it was just constantly about trying to prove that I was more than that.
Can anyone else relate?
I found a lot more freedom once I'd started doing more comedy, because I'd been doing serious things, but then once you start doing more comedy, then people don't think you can do serious. It's just this ongoing reinvention that you're trying to, you know, and like Helena said, you know, people having preconceived ideas about you and trying to shake that up, or like Janelle's speaking about with stereotypes. You really have to run your own race in a way, and always like be checking in with yourself, and you know, and I find too, though, as I get older, is that I'm less concerned about all the noise and just trying to figure out what is the project as a whole that either saying something or exceptional or has something about it that could potentially be exceptional. And I think, getting older does it's given me a little more freedom.
And Rose, to what you said about once you play comedy, then they don't think you can do the drama. And if you're only seen as a dramatic actress, then they don't think you can do comedy. And they forget that we're actors and we actually have it all in there. It's just about finding it and accessing it and getting the material.
Well, I think also, I think something that's really shifted in our business is streaming too, and the influence of data over our business. So it used to be we were just reliant on a bunch of people who worked at a studio to tell us what movies worked. And we just kind of, blindly accepted it. Or they'd say, comedies don't travel overseas, or black films don't play well in other countries. It's just not true. Now we have empirical data that other stories need to be heard, and there is a huge audience for them. I mean, if you see that, you just see that with Zendaya. It has 400 million followers. I mean, she has her own data stream. She knows more what her audience wants to see her do than any head of any studio. So in a way, we have a sense of control and authorship and the ability to steer our careers that we never had before. I couldn't connect to my audience. I didn't know where they lived. Now I know exactly where they live. I know if they like me on Apple. I know if they like me on Hulu. I know if they like Amazon better. It was greatly empowering. This information age has, brought on a lot of yucky stuff, but it's also brought on this liberation that we are able to connect and we know we matter.
No, I think that's absolutely right. Zendaya, I want to turn to you because one of the things that you did just ahead of the premiere of Euphoria is you took to your social media to sort of warn your followers about what they were about to see and sort of suggesting it could be triggering, and my guess is it's a younger audience. How much do you sort of grapple with what your fan base can handle, and how does that play into the decisions you make?
I think a lot of my fans have grown up with me, so some of them are my own age. But obviously I still have young ones still that watch Disney Channel or still that watch Greatest Showman or Spider-Man and things like that. Going back to influence, and I do take a heavy responsibility, but I'm appreciative for that because I think there's a lot of good that I can do. We have the data, I have control of that, and I know who's watching, and now more than ever, specifically with Black Lives Matter and everything like that, I feel obligation to make sure that I'm aware and putting out the right things and in line with organizers and people who are on the ground, and so I do try to always take that into consideration.
Can I ask, Zendaya, how old are you?
I'm 23.
I mean, I can't believe you're 23. That is extraordinary, and you have all this pressure. I mean, I couldn't string I was like a depressive weirdo. You're so composed and erudite, and you have all this social media stuff. I can't even imagine. And look at you. You're like, honestly, it's really.
Thank you.
And you're a woman of color. You've just so many things going on, and under this microscope, I just admire so much. I could never do that at your age. At 23.
Thank you. I'm just figuring it out as I go. Like I said, trying to do the best I can. And when it came to Euphoria, I just wanted to make sure that my fans knew, even the ones who were my age or older than me, that I still felt their support, even if they felt that the material or things were too triggering for them, or something that maybe they don't feel ready or comfortable to watch yet, if they maybe experienced addiction or whatever their stories may be. And so I definitely wanted to put that out there. But that was my thing, is I definitely didn't want to limit myself as an artist. I wanted to be able to do the things that I want to do and play the roles that I want to play, but also still remember that responsibility and take that into consideration as well.
One of the things I've heard you say in the past is that you've told your representatives, even if the part calls for a white girl, put me up for it. Get me in the room.
Yeah. Being, a light-skinned woman, to recognize my privilege in that sense as well. But yeah, I mean, when roles came through, Rue had no description either. Our writer and creator, he wrote Rue based off a lot of his own personal experiences with addiction, and he is a white man, so Rue could have been that. So I'm very grateful that I was able to bring the character to life. she is who she is. But I was just grateful to tell the story.
You guys are all playing very complicated characters, messy characters. Are you able to sort of leave them at work, or do they come home with you, and what does that look like?
I'm pretty church and state. I leave it. I don't know.
You do?
I'm pretty leave it at the thing, and then it's done. It's done. And I just leave it. I mean, I regret things, and I'm hard on myself, and I'm all that, but I don't so much drag it home. I think particularly with little kids, they couldn't care less. They couldn't give a shit if I had a hard day or.
I think that's a good point, Rose, because I remember sitting with a big male movie star probably 4 years ago, and I was prepping for that movie Wild. It's a movie that a woman walks through the wilderness for 1,000 miles. She loses her mom, and she has to, she's a drug addict and all this stuff. And this guy said, well, what are you doing to prepare? Are you gonna go into the woods and I was like, I have a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and I just had a baby. No, I basically got off the airplane and put on some shorts and went to work, because being a mom is a whole. I call it my other full-time job.
Yeah, it's really true.
I don't get to bring it home, and when I do bring it home, my whole family lets me know.
Yeah, me too. Bobby's like, snap out of it. Where are you? You totally snapped out. What's wrong with you? Baby, come on. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I'm like,
Janelle, your next project is Antebellum, which is another tough one, and I know it was one that wasn't an easy yes for you, but you've talked about sort of the emotional toll that takes. What did that look like? What do you sort of bring home with you from a project like that?
Oh, I brought all of my ancestors home with me. This is a project that deals with the past, the present, and the future, and connects those things, and is so of the times today. It was very heavy, and it was not going to be a yes for me, because I knew that I was going to have to dig deep. I knew the responsibility. I knew the weight. I knew what this character was going to have to go through physically, and emotionally. And I couldn't even talk to my family sometimes. They would call me on the weekends, because we were doing lots of night shoots, and I know you guys know about those night shoots. And we were filming
the worst.
We were filming most of the stuff at night on a plantation, the same plantation that they shot Django on, actually. And I felt everything, and there were just certain conversations that even in craft services, if I heard, it would just be triggering for me. And I would tell my family and friends, I'll talk to you guys later, because once I'm in character, I'm in. It's kind of unhealthy. When I think back, I was also going through, this last year, I filmed Antebellum May through June, went on tour July through August to Europe.
Wow.
For an album, and went to Japan. It was a wonderful experience, and then started filming Homecoming for 2 months. So I didn't have a break mentally.
That's too much.
On top of that, I was dealing with mercury poisoning. I got diagnosed with high levels of mercury in my system, and I used it for Homecoming. I didn't know I had it in Antebellum.
How'd you get mercury poisoning?
I decided that I wanted to become a pescatarian. I was like, I want to just see if I can be disciplined, and so I ended up having a lot of tuna, a lot of sushi, a lot of fish that had high levels of mercury in it. And I luckily went in for what I thought was a strep throat, and my doctor was like, let me test are you still pescatarian? Let me test your mercury level. And I was like, okay. And on set, doing all of the screen testing for Homecoming, I get a call, and he said, you need to stop eating fish and seafood immediately. You have triple the amounts of acute mercury poisoning in your system right now. And I mean, this messes with your nervous system. It messes with your coordination. I talk about it because I want people to just know that it's a real thing.
Yeah.
That what we're doing to our environment is killing us.
Can I just ask what the symptoms were? What were you feeling that you...
Helena, are you okay?
Well, yeah, it might be. She might have just solved my problem. But what were you feeling?
It might not be the same for everybody, but online when I was looking it up, most of the symptoms, and I had them, was like memory loss. I lost a lot of hair because I had worn my hair in plaits for antebellum, and I was like, oh, my hair is gonna grow, and I'm taking care of it. And then I took them out, and like it was coming out in the shower. And shyness. I didn't want to talk to people a lot. I was very recluse. Like people would reach out and want to talk, and I apologize now if you were one of those people last year who reached out to me and wanted to talk or engage in business or whatever. I just didn't have it in me. I was always having to meditate and like I wasn't working from my normal reality. But looking back at the footage and looking back at things, I really used it. I used that disorientation. I used the unraveling in my personal life on screen.
If we were to barge into your trailers, what would we hear, what would we see as you prepare?
I have a lot of drinks and I have a lot of snacks. My thing is staying awake and keeping myself interested and excited to act when I need to. Mm-hmm. So I have this thing, and I have nuts and chocolate and water and some apple cider vinegar and I have caffeine, tons of caffeine. And I just medicate with my snacks.
I love it.
And I have a hot water bottle, so I snooze. I have an ability to sleep. Even if lunch break is only 20 minutes, I'll just quickly eat and then I'll always get unconscious. I have my paraphernalia. It's uppers and downers, basically, but legal ones. Hot water bottle downer, Diet Coke up. And then you're just going, that is basically what you're doing, isn't it? I mean,
that's hysterical.
That's pretty bad.
How do you do it?
I love listening to film scores. Like, I don't want to hear music with lyrics or singing. Like, for instance, with Homecoming, it has such a Hitchcockian vibe, right? So Bernard Herrmann and the score for Homecoming is incredible, and that's what made me want to do it this season. And also Julia Roberts, I'm thankful for women like her. She executive produced Homecoming, and for her to say, yes, Janelle Monáe, you come and lead this show when not a lot of black women are leading shows. I felt pressure in that way, but I also felt relaxed in knowing that you had the support of somebody like her. And I want to make it so that the nervousness that I felt, like, oh my God, Julia Roberts was the first season. What are people going to think second season? I'm this young black girl. I've never led TV before. What are people going to think? So freaked out. I don't want another person like myself to think like that again. I want the same freedom that Julia probably felt. She had other pressures, but there are different pressures when you know that you are that minority showing up. So one of the things that helps alleviate that for me is music. When I'm going into a character, because I'm able to tap into my imagination. I'm able to tap into where the music takes me, the strings, all of that. Like, you start thinking about the art. You're not thinking about doing a good job or whatever. You're thinking about, this is the art. This is my childlike self. This is a moment to reconnect with why. Why are we doing this anyway? If it's not fun, if it's not going to take you on a journey, what's the why, and how and score really does help me tap back into my why.
I love that. When was the last time you were genuinely starstruck? Jen, I think I got to watch you be starstruck on the Graham Norton show.
Oh my God, Julie Andrews?
Yeah.
That was, I did that. I was starstruck there, 100%.
I met Julia Roberts on the set of Homecoming because my husband Bobby was in it, and I had my baby strapped to my chest, and I'd never met her before. And I had a Pretty Woman poster on my wall, in Sydney, Australia, and there she was. And I just was like, like couldn't talk.
The same. She showed up second season. I didn't know she was going to be on set, and we did a scene, and all of a sudden we heard a, ah! And we were like, who is that? And then one of the guys from production leaned in and said, I think she loves it. That's Julia Roberts. And so I got an opportunity to just hug her, and that also made me relax. I was like, okay, Julia's, she's loving what she sees, and I think that was a big moment.
This is exciting. I'm proud of myself for speaking it all because I was very nervous. But I think when I met Beyonce, I mean, that was, I think, I lost my cool. I just was like, my dad even said it because I was with my dad at the time, and he was like, dude, you nerded out just then. I was like, I know, she probably thinks I'm weird.
What about you, Reese?
I get starstruck all the time. I'm such a fan. I watch so many people, and I think that's one of the fun things about being an actor is like, I can just be an audience member. So I watch all of y'all, each one of you, and I'm blown away by your work. And I just like Zendaya, I was a kid actor, and the fact that I'm still around and I'm still
looking like a kid.
Oh, you're sweet. And I have to say, I get starstruck around authors because they do that deep emotional work. And they dig into trauma. And I feel the same way about musicians. Janelle, I'm just in awe of you having all of these talents. Writing beautiful music, composing with people, creating visual art with your music, but then also doing these incredible intimate performances where you're really revealing so much of yourself. That's astounding. And I never want to lose that wonder that I have about human beings. Like I feel that they're all, and everybody has a story. It's so interesting to me.
Well, and in your position now, when you're interested, you call them up and say, let's do something together.
I've called a few of you. No, I think there's great power in female partnership. I think we all have to stick together. The guys have been sticking together forever. And they've all been working with each other forever. And they've all made 7 and 10 movies together. And we haven't done enough with each other. It's a new landscape for all of us to collaborate and amplify each other and just celebrate each other.
Helena, is there a moment where you found yourself sort of pinching yourself?
Many, many moments. Many, many moments. It is a privilege in this business that we meet our heroes. So many. Meryl Streep, she was amazing. And then I did this film, Ocean's 8, and it was just like every single person was remarkable. Like there was Cate Blanchett, there was Sandra Bullock, it was just like one after the other. And then Rihanna came in, and she just outstarred everybody because everyone was just like, and she's extraordinary. I mean, she just is extraordinary in her magnetism, and she's a goddess. So many times. And as you know, like Reese, I don't want to ever lose that wonder, that part of me. She's absolutely right, and I hope she asks for my number and gives me a part or something. But but it's never been better for us. It never has been better for us as women, as older women. I mean, we would have been long extinct. I would have been long put out to pasture, when I started. So it's just never been better for us. So we can do amazing stories, and just employ us and ourselves. And just do, and everyone, we now know that everybody is interested in all these, on humans of all different shapes and sizes, and we've got all these stories, and they don't have to be boring and stereotypical and very small. The world is huge, and there's so many stories to be told.
Thank you all for being part of what really was a powerful conversation. I know we are all physically distant, but I hope that you felt, as I did, connected. Thank you.